So I'm sitting here with John Predham
Predham.
of Black Electric. Let me just first say, what a cool name. I mean, I think the name Black Anything is pretty awesome. My first organization that I started, their company trucks are all black. So
Very cool.
I have a thing for black. So sitting here, we're just having a real and honest conversation. You're based out in New York?
Correct.
And you guys been in business since 1934.
They
That's
have.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You have a really interesting story, John, from my understanding. You know, you started out in the union, what you were saying earlier here.
Right.
And then just to fast forward a little bit here, you went into your own business, had your own business for
26 years.
26 years.
Yeah.
And you guys went from zero. How many people did you have at your peak?
We topped out about 100 employees.
Okay. And so you said you sold that business, and now you're at Black Electric, and you're running the company there. What's your title there?
Right now, I'm executive director of
Okay.
the company.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you do a little bit of everything then.
I do. I wear all the hats. I'm having fun again. You
Yeah.
know, I'm fortunate that I've been able to wear all the hats in the business, you know,
Yeah.
from being an apprentice right through, you know, doing marketing, project management, layout, estimating.
Wow.
So,
Well, I think that's something that's really important. And one of the things that's really cool about the trades that it does is it gives you the ability. I was just saying to someone earlier that I don't think the sky is the limit with the trades. I don't think there is a limit. And your story is very unique because of the way that it, I think, reveals what can happen in the trades, how you can actually go full circle, and then you can utilize your skills then that you've built over those 26 years to run a company, a totally different company.
right.
What do you think is one of the largest challenge and since you've had some of these experiences in running a company that has 30 employees versus running a company that has 100 employees?
So it's different. There's a couple differences in union and non-union.
Yeah.
I mean, union, you have a talent pool that you can hire guys when you need them. Being open shop, it's got more challenges. So we're limited on resources. You know, I interviewed a young man this morning as an apprentice. He's going to a BOCES program. He's going to start in our shop. But it's the challenge is, to me, it's not getting to work. I've got relationships that go back 30 years.
Yeah.
Finding the work is not difficult. It is competitive.
Yeah.
But a lot of my clients
Don't you love that when you bid a job and they're like, so how do we look? Oh, you're competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's
you could have
scary.
been competitive and been like, you know, way below the next guy.
It's
There's,
true.
There's competitive and there's I'm losing my shirt.
That's right. Low bidder, you always get nervous.
Yeah.
So, but we're fortunate. We do mostly private work. We do a little bit of public work. You know, I try not to compete with the unions.
Yeah.
I've got very good relationship with a lot of the business agents throughout New York State and Connecticut. So there's certain jobs, you know, I have the freedom to stay away from.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fortunate that they gave me that direction. You know, I don't have to go after every single job.
Yeah.
But it's challenging getting manpower. You know, when I came on board about 12 months ago, we had 14 or 15 employees. We're up to about 35 now. And they're all handpicked. There are a lot of guys that I've worked with over the years that have come back, worked for me at my own company, previous company that I sold mine to. And I know their capabilities.
Yeah.
That's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to get I hate to call them the older guys, but I'm trying to get them to be more mentors, train the younger people, and keep them passionate about the industry. Because I've seen over the last 5 or 10 years, a lot of the young people that enter into trades are getting burnt out quicker than the guys that have been in the trades.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't had the right mentors. They're getting, they're getting not abused, but the culture 20 years ago is different than it is today. And even for me.
Yeah. Well, I think culture is one of those things that continually changes. You know, I don't even know that culture was a word that was used 20 years ago.
No, I don't think it was.
And I'm trying to even think what I would have done had I heard that on the job site. You know, like how that would have, how
You would
that
have been laughed at.
Probably
Yeah.
would have been the chemical culture that was in the Porta John, you know, with the blue stuff. And when anyway, that's a whole nother discussion.
It's true.
So in going through that, like you know, when you're talking about culture, you're talking about trying to get people in and mentorship. I think one of our big struggles in the trades is getting the generation that came before us or before who's here today to be willing to take the time and the effort and the energy, which it is that, to invest in that generation. What do you look for in people? Like you say you need mentors. You say your struggle is not to get work,
Right.
but it is to get people. And I love that you say you handpick them. I talked with a businessman once, and I was asking him, an electrical company, and I was asking him, I said, who are your best people? Like, what do you, and he goes, honestly, he goes, over the years of being in business, he goes, the best people that we have are the ones that we built from the ground up.
Right.
And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? What are you saying when you say that statement? And he goes, a young man or a young woman who came into the trade and they wanted to learn. They didn't come from somewhere else. They didn't come from here. They didn't come from there. But we were able to invest in them and to build into them. And he's like, those were the best of the best.
Right. It's true.
So I'm curious, I know what it means when you say you handpicked people. And in this instance, you're in a very unique situation where you've come in to run a company. You've already run a company of a larger size, and your goal in any business, I'm assuming, would be to be building the business.
Of course.
Which is what you're doing. So with that, you are bringing people that how they've been built already into this organization, which that is great that they have that asset through you. But how are you getting the older generation, and maybe you don't know the answer to this yet, but how are you getting them to be those mentors for that next generation?
It's a challenge. A lot of people have been in the industry as long as I have. They're kind of set in their ways. They're looking at their exit plan now. And, it's hard when you're on some of these projects, you're running at such a fast pace.
Yeah.
They actually tell me I don't have time to train them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hope that's not coming from me. I want you to take the time to sit down and train them, explain it. And that could not even just be electrical. It could be safety. It could be general construction. It could be how to talk to a client, an architect, housekeeping. It's the only way they're going to learn. And again, I know which of the tradespeople that work for me are capable of that and which ones aren't. So I put some of the younger apprentices coming on board with these people to help them train and help them learn the business. And I've always had an open door policy. If my door was closed for an hour a week, it was a lot. And I would tell everybody, come see me. You got to communicate. I've placed apprentices with journeymen that didn't work out for one reason or another. And I know they're good kids, coming in, and I don't want to see them leave or go to a competitor. So a lot of times I end up sitting down with the journeyman. So what's the problem here? Yeah. Well, he doesn't know anything. Exactly. We're going to teach him. Yeah. We're going to teach him.
Yeah. I think that's the difficult part. And as leaders in organizations, one of the things that I think that we can miss when you have that overview of the company and the projects and what's going on, you touched on this briefly, but you can miss that. Well, if guys are saying, well, I don't have time to train them. Well, am I communicating that you don't have time to train them? Because, I can remember when I was in that position, I would say to people, I'm the one signing the checks.
Right.
So I'm saying that you have time to train them. Well, no, I don't. And so helping to be aware of that. And you talk about communicating and communication is hard.
It is.
I can't tell you how many times I have thought that I said this. Matter of fact, it just happened today where I had asked someone to do something. And I went out and I looked at what they did, and it's like they did exactly the opposite of what I asked them to do. Exactly the opposite. And you know who you are. But the reality is it was my fault. Because in my hurried communication, I didn't make sure that I had communicated enough context for them to understand what it is that I was asking them to do.
Right. Happens a lot.
Yeah. And I think it happens a lot in the trades, and it happens a lot because those of us who are mentors also have to learn how to be mentors.
Right.
And that is taking a breath and recognizing that we're on the dance floor. That's what that thinking is. Yeah. My efficiency and my quality is not about right now in the moment. It's about, like, you've looked at you ever do a project that's more than a year, and you look at a construction schedule and you have critical path items,
Sure.
the way that it's stacked and the Gantt chart and all that stuff out through there. And it's like, that's really how we have to look at mentorship. You know, you can't freak out in the day to day. You have to lay it out and be like, all right, this is what we're trying to teach this person. How do we lay that out? How do we look at that? And, you know, it's our job as leaders to train the mentors in how to relearn how they think. I mean, I'm just remembering when I came up in the trades, the way that I learned, you know, it was like, you might have experienced this too. And this is an electrical humor thing. So some of you won't get it. Mainly I'm talking about plumbers. But they sent me, and I looked for probably 15 minutes longer than I should have for the wire stretcher.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I still haven't been able to find it. It's been over 20-some years. You know, I mean, that was the way that I was taught.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You know, a little bit of humor, if there's time, you know. I don't know that we see that as much anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I heard someone talk about this the other day, and I really want to address this because it pisses me off. Well, if I teach them, then they're going to take my job.
Right.
And, you know, that is not a healthy outlook for anyone to have.
Not at all.
Because really, you are in this mindset of trying to protect something that doesn't need to be protected. And you're preventing growth in yourself, in the company. And if you're not growing, then you are most certainly dying.
Right.
And I think that's something. How do we as leaders in organizations, whether you have 15 employees, whether you have 30 employees, or whether you have 100 employees, how do we maintain having our teams be able to make that investment and not fall into that trap?
It's a great question. It has to start at the top. You know, I've been at the top. After I sold my company, I was a little lower down in the food chain, but it's all in the message that we deliver.
Yeah.
You know, and I've learned a lot about culture in the last 5 years. You know, I look back at how I did things I would do different. I learned from it. So I think what we need to do is take our leaders that we call leaders out there and give them the tools to mentor, whether it's training, you know, a separate class on how to do it. Because, you know, a lot of guys, they're like, I'm just an electrician. Yeah. You're more than that. You know, you're a mentor to this kid. He looks up to you, you know, and it bothers me when I see it. And, you know, there's oftentimes some of my project managers, my supers, they're like, you do too much. You know, I'll put a dot-to-dot or a to-do list together and hand it to an apprentice, whether they're working in the warehouse or the shop or loading a truck. They're like, just tell him. I said, well, if I tell him and he gets it wrong, I'm going to blame him. He's going to blame me. I said, if I put it in writing and it takes me 2 minutes and he does it wrong, then it's kind of on him, and that's how he's going to learn. Yeah. So to me, that's just a tool in the toolbox on delivering the message, whether it's, you know, I'm a big phone guy, like you talk about miscommunications. I've sent text messages, and the guy calls me back. He's like, I don't know what you want. I'm like, to me, it was clear.
Yeah.
To him, it wasn't. I'm like, you know, that's a great point. So I'm still learning. You know, I'm 56 years old. I'm, you know, what they call an industry veteran. Still love it. I'm still taking classes, CEUs, but I'm really trying to teach, you know, all generations in the trades, even the guys that are going to leave in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't want them to leave. I want to keep them around. You know, we spoke earlier, you know, we see fractional CEOs. You know, why can't I have a fractional or a part-time guy that was in the field, maybe got injured, maybe his back is bad. Why can't I bring him in the field or bring him out of the field into the office or the warehouse or deliver materials or pull materials or do takeoffs? There's so many other positions beyond just being an electrician.
Yeah.
You know, great opportunities. I mean, my family jokes with me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to retire. You know, my dad worked till he was in his 80s.
Yeah.
You know, and he always said, I don't want to just retire and die. And I like that. You know, my plan is to be involved at some capacity in the trades, whether it's mentorship, training, teaching, you know, educating.
I want to slide into the grave. I want to be going full tilt.
Yeah.
And I'm going to slide. I mean, come on. We're going to die.
Right.
We might as well die falling forward.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Yeah. I think that's important. You talk about, you know, bringing people in and looking at that. I think that's something businesses sometimes struggle with because, listen, the bottom line is important. It matters. But sometimes businesses struggle with, I think, looking at, I learned a very valuable lesson. I'm going to call this the lowest qualified number. And is what I mean by that is I think sometimes as businesses, we get lost in the sauce of the numbers and we miss what is actually paying dividends.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, when I was, early in business and I remember I was bidding a job, I learned this very valuable lesson about, I got all these quotes. We were doing a medium voltage project.
Right.
And got all these quotes from these different vendors. And this one, and this one. And then there was this one that was like, wow, this is significantly lower. I can really make some money. Even if I split this in between. And I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, yeah. And so I did it.
Yeah.
And I ordered the material. I looked at it. I called the guy up. I did my due diligence. I'm like, you got everything, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got it. And it was a hospital project for the military. And we're there and we're working on it. And we're there laying things out. And I'm there with the superintendent. And he goes, where's this?
Oh, boy.
And I call the vendor up and they're like, oh, yeah, that's not needed and that's not a part of it. And we don't have that. And so it was like, oh, and it wasn't legitimate, but it was like they played a trick on me to win the job. And there was nothing I could do about it, because I didn't catch it from the beginning.
Right.
And so I just had to order new parts, which I didn't order from that vendor, let me tell you. But I learned that day a rather expensive lesson.
Right.
And that lesson was it's not just about the bottom line, but it's about the line.
Correct.
The whole way through. And so it's like now when we look at a project or we look at a bid, it's like, well, what is the lowest qualified number?
Right.
Usually it's not the lowest number. If some of my clients could figure that out, that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the reality is, as a businessman, what we need to do and what you're talking about bringing someone in and mentoring, we're like, well, wait a minute. He's producing in the field. And I've been talking about this a lot lately, the power of multiplication.
Yes.
And when we bring a mentor in that has that experience and you're losing that individual in the field and you're losing that production. But like you said, maybe they're older. Maybe they're, they have a hurt back or maybe it's something that you can provide a win for them by bringing them in. And yes, you're losing that production value. But what if they then have the ability to mentor not one, but two, but three, but four people?
Right. It's powerful.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the power of multiplication. And when we do that, that's how we can look at, well, what is the qualified bid here and how I'm looking at the bottom line?
Right.
What is it that I'm looking at? And I think that as businesses, we really need to be focusing on that. And it is very counterintuitive. It's easy to talk about on a podcast, but I'm speaking from experience. It's very difficult when I'm looking at the paperwork.
It is.
But it pays off. If you have the stones to do it in your business, it pays off.
Right.
It's not a today thing, and it might not be a tomorrow thing, but it will be a survival thing if you can do it. And I think that's what we're realizing in the trades. Even in what you and I have been talking about, it's like, we don't have a choice. If we don't do this and we keep focusing on the bottom line,
right,
there's not going to be any line to focus on at all.
Right. Yeah.
So Black Electric, what type of work do you guys do?
So we primarily do light commercial, high-end residential.
Okay.
We have residential projects that are north of $1 million projects.
Wow.
We do line work as well, medium voltage work. We've got a couple digging trucks, a couple bucket trucks, and each one of those facets kind of opens different doors for us. We're doing a temporary service on a large commercial job coming out, and we were bidding against ourselves, still winning competitive. Everybody knows really what the numbers should be.
Yeah.
But the bigger picture is the job behind it. And we developed a relationship with this client. If our numbers are in line, it'll be negotiated private work. We're probably going to win that work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do some public work. We do some school work, hospital work, which is kind of what attracted me to them.
Yeah.
Because I like to play in all those spaces.
Yeah.
I've done high-rise work. I've done residential, commercial, agricultural, water treatment, working with rigid. It's fun.
Yeah.
And that's what really makes you an electrician. When you can touch all those different types of services that we provide, you're going to get a well-rounded electrician.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I have so enjoyed about my career in the electrical field is I've gotten to experience so many different facets.
Right.
And due to not insult anyone, there are certain facets I never want to experience again. And then there are things that I could literally do until the day I die that were just cool. I'll never forget working on an airport job doing taxiway lighting.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you get your own air show while you're working. Yeah, I mean it's
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, we've talked through different things here. You've been on this planet for 56 years.
Right.
You've spent your life in the trades. What would you say to someone who is starting out? Maybe they got their journeyman's card. They have some knowledge and they want to go out on their own. They want to start their own business. What would you say to them?
I love it. So, when I had my own company, I did a monthly meeting where I brought every employee in. And I used to do the math for them. I said, listen, you guys are on the clock. We've got 70, maybe 80 people here. Some meetings were 15 minutes, some were an hour long.
Yeah.
To me, that was an investment in my people. And I always said, and it's funny because I have a lot of my meeting minutes from 25 years ago.
Come on.
I always spoke about, listen, there could be a day that I'm working for you. And everybody laughed. I said, you don't know that.
Yeah.
I said, things change, life changes, I get injured. But, as I look back on it, I had probably half a dozen guys that went on their own.
Yeah.
And I blessed them.
Yeah.
I had guys that left me not to go work for a direct competitor, but they went on their own or they went to work for Public Works. I had guys that left for Metro North. I had a couple come back. I left that door open. I've had guys that borrowed tools from me. I said, listen, I've got the best shop in the Hudson Valley. I've got every tool you need. Borrow it. Make sure it works when you bring it back and make sure you bring it back so I know. And I'm still have relationships with a lot of these guys. A lot of them are doing well. To me, now it's funny that you bring that up. I guess I was kind of a mentor to them. Maybe I inspired them to go on their own.
I think that's a huge thing in business that we need to kind of get our head out of our butt in the sense of that's a huge compliment when, you've given the employee what he needs to go give it a try.
Sure.
And if they're anything like me, I have no right to be frustrated with that because that's what I did.
Right.
And, and I'm not saying that you need to be happy about it 5 minutes after they came into your office and said, I'm quitting and I'm going and I'm, out on my own. There's a process to it for sure. But the reality is if you're able to invest in someone like that and give that to them, that's a compliment to your company.
Sure is.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, in hindsight, I've had one or two, gave them my blessing, and an hour later, my contractors are calling me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I heard so-and-so left. He called. I'm like, really? That was the one agreement we had. And, I know everybody in the industry. I've been around a long time. Your area, all who your competitors were, employees that move around. And it was a hard pill to swallow for me. Like, even when I see them now at certain contractors' meetings.
I'll agree.
I'm like, oh.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
But, here's the deal. So it's interesting you brought that up because I've had to deal with this recently, but I've learned this aspect of it because it's like, wow, really? You're just like, first of all, not very creative. Like, you leave, you go out on your own, and you're like, hey, I was just working with you as this. Now I'm on my own. But not to them that like that employer, whoever they're doing that, they're not the ones that frustrate me.
Right.
It's the client that says, yeah, we're going to hire you.
Sure.
And this is my thing that I have learned. And maybe you've experienced this as well. I don't need that client.
Correct.
If that is the way that they're going to be, then they are. I want relationships that we're building something together and we're going to leave a legacy that is remembered. And then on the next job, we're going to build that together because then we have this thing, and it's an elusive thing, but we have this thing called trust.
That's right.
And man, when you have trust, not only can everyone make money, the specialty contractor, the general contractor, the client can make money by getting a less expensive project. Not only, does everyone make money like that, but then you also have what I would call true sustainability. Because when you have trust like that, then it's the next job and the next job and the next job. And it's like, when you get in relationships like that and some of those clients, I had this experience, and this is how I learned what I was just talking with you about, where now I'm working with other electrical companies, and I'm seeing things from another perspective. And I had a company say to me, and I don't just work with electrical companies. They just have a special place in my heart.
Sure.
But this company's like, why can't I get in with this group? You know, I want to do work for them. Why can't I get in with them? Well, that group, they work on trust.
Right.
And they have the people that they trust. And so they don't call other people.
Right.
They don't call other people. For 30 years, they haven't been calling other people. And it's like, those are the relationships that you want. You don't want to build a relationship with someone where you always have to be the lowest number, not the lowest qualified number, but you got to be the lowest number. That doesn't help anybody.
No, not at all. Not in our industry.
Yeah. Well, and we all end up chasing our tails.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point on that. And I learned that from one of my coworkers, Jeff, that I work with. He's who I consider a partner at work.
Yeah.
You know, when a client or a GC awards us a project and they ask for a specific person, we do everything in our power to give them that person. And it was new to me. Jeff also gave him a bonus. Like, listen, come right out of the gate before we started the job.
Wow.
And you'd be surprised at the value of that. And it's not big, it's not life-changing, but to get a bonus at the start of a job, that he's into the job.
Yeah.
Into it. So it's something I learned, you know, even at my age, little things like that, that's back to part of the culture.
Yeah.
And that spreads like wildfire around the company.
Yeah.
Oh, so-and-so got a bonus.
It's pretty awesome to hear that you've gone through a company cycle, you've gone through an employment cycle, and now you're in a cycle of building another company and being asked to bring your experience to that. So I mean, this brings me to the place where I want to ask you, like, and you've heard me ask this before, so I know that you're prepared for it. And while I might not be asking you every question similar to what you've heard before, this one I won't let go of. What is a mistake that you've made, John, that you're willing to share with people that they might learn from, whether in employment, in business, in selling a business, in running a business, in taking over a new business,
right?
And any aspect of life. Like I said, 56 years on the planet, man.
Right.
I'm thinking that you might have made one mistake that you could share with people that they might be able to benefit from and learn from.
I've made many, learned from every one of them.
Yeah.
Probably one of the top mistakes I had in my own business was during growth. We had what I'll call the best reputation on the street,
Yeah.
you know, which is tough.
Yeah.
I had the manpower, the horsepower to do the big jobs. You know, we would get called in, no bid, you know, we need 20 guys tomorrow. So
Those are fun phone calls.
oh, those are great.
Those are fun phone calls.
What happened, it started pulling me geographically. I was based really in New York, Connecticut. Now I was getting opportunities in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You know, I did a job in Mount Washington. I did a 50,000 square foot project in Grand Cayman. I started doing work in Florida.
Grand Cayman, that's not close to Mount Washington.
No, I was all over. And what happened, and at the time it was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't have kids yet. It was good. And all of a sudden, I was that guy that was stretched too thin. I couldn't return phone calls. I couldn't return emails. I was on a plane.
Yeah.
I was on a plane 3 times a week sometimes.
Wow.
And I really noticed it with my key people that were with me almost from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's good. You know, you need help?" I'm like, no, I got it. And then as I started finishing those jobs, you know what it's like to finish a job. The last 5% is tough. And I was known.
Sucks. I'll start 100 jobs to finishing one.
I was known for that. Like, you know, Elite was the company that came in. They pushed it in the, you know, over the end zone.
Yeah.
So I had to start putting my key guys on the plane.
Yeah.
Sending them to Florida, sending them to Grand Cayman. And all of a sudden I'm suffering locally.
Yeah.
And it hurt. You know, it hurt my ego. It really hurt financially. And at that time, my wife was pregnant, might even just had the kids. And I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
No more work. And I was forced to take on partners in different areas that I didn't know, I didn't trust. And, you know, that's one of my weak things. I want to trust everybody.
Yeah.
But it was a good lesson learned. And
what would you do differently?
so I probably, doing what I do now, because I've done a lot of acquisitions on my own and mergers, I probably would partner somebody in that area
Yeah.
that I know and trust, do my due diligence, and partner up on it. We can both make money. You know,
Yeah.
I definitely saw dollar signs. I'm like,
Yeah.
who's better than me? You know, everybody on the outside is like, holy cow, they're killing it. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. You know, you start getting on a plane, it changes life.
Yes, it does.
You know,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
does.
yeah.
It does change
But
life.
you know, again, I look at everything, and that's my style. It's a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually helped me win jobs. You know, I was at a conference in Denver, job in Miami popped up, client called up, and he's like, I need you here tomorrow. And I tell the story to this day. You know, I was in shorts and a khaki. I told them they were, you know, a bunch of New York, New Jersey guys building in Florida.
Yeah.
Went down and met with them. I'm like, what are we doing? We need you to do this job. And that was, again, I'm like, I don't know if I'm interested. You know, what's going on? They had already hired somebody that I knew about, and I knew the job was going bad. And I got to name my price. I said, here's how it is. We're doing a complete redesign. We're doing drawings, marketing, engineering. Done. So it was kind of cool, and I still have relationships with a few of those developers because they are New York based. But I look back, I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
Do it different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd either refer it to somebody. I refer a lot of work now.
Yeah.
You know, I've got connections all over the U.S. that I refer to different contractors that I know can support it and do the right job. It's not gonna hurt my relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what always fears. That's the big scare of mine, ruining a relationship.
I think relationship is where it's at. And, you know, when you share work like that, the really funny thing when you do that, it comes back to you.
Sure does.
And, you know, and it becomes such a better thing when we're able to do that. Any time that we're chasing dollar signs or running from fear, anytime we're doing one of those two things, that should be a red flag for you that trouble's on the horizon.
Correct.
For sure. For sure. John, I so appreciate you taking the time here, and like you came to where we were at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
yeah.
really appreciate that. And I just appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate that you are continuing at this age, going through what you went through. You're doing what we're trying to get people to do.
Yeah.
You're sharing your knowledge, you're mentoring, and you're doing it in a humble way. Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called The Ideal Team Player, and anybody that knows me knows I love teams. But the three things that he said the ideal team player needs to have is they need to be humble, hungry, and smart. And so I'm not going to tell you what those all stand for. Some of them are self-explanatory. Read the book, because if you want to be improving yourself, you need to be reading books. That's
Absolutely.
just a reality. And if you're not, that's okay, but then you're not going to be improving yourself. That's
100% true. Yeah. I always tell everybody we all have a toolbox, but there's tools that are not in that box that you need to use.
Absolutely.
You know, it's your mind,
Absolutely.
it's your eyes, it's your ears. You got to listen,
Yeah.
and you got to talk. You got to communicate.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's asking questions, building relationships like this. You know, I know now that our path is going to cross.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? Once a month, once a year.
Yeah.
You know, but now I've got a new relationship in the industry.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you taking the time and reaching out. You know, I'm excited about the future of the skilled trades.
Well, I really, you know, at Blackline, our vision is to lift the view of the skilled trades. And, you know, we do that through many different avenues, whether it's, you know, our apprenticeship program, our brand building program for trade businesses. You know, we go around the country helping tell the stories of trade businesses, because trade businesses, we kind of aren't good at that, by the way. And, you know, we've done some of that. We have some experience in that, and we want to be building that for
Right.
you. And so the reality is, you put your money where your mouth is. You're doing what you're asking people to do.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's important. So if you're listening to this, who are you mentoring? Who are you working with? Who are you investing in? Who are you pouring into? Like John said, and what they're doing at Black Electric, you know, they've doubled in size in less than a year.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And they're continuing to do that, but they're working towards it through mentoring and investing in people. That's what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And nobody else should name their company Black anything, because we own all the copyrights to things related to Black. So I'm just saying that. So thank you, John.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.